Good afternoon. This hearing will come to order. I want to welcome everybody and thank my ranking member, Senator Sessions, all of our colleagues who are joining us and will be joining us today. We are here this afternoon to consider President Obama's nomination of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Shaun Donovan to the position of Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary, for joining us here today. I also do want to acknowledge the tremendous contributions of your family, your wife Liza, your sons Lucas and Milo, who I know have been an incredible source of support for you today, and I understand they sat through the hearing this morning for you. That double duty requiring them to sit here behind you today would be more than a dad should ask if you want Father's Day to be good for you. So tell them thank you for all of us. I know that all of us couldn't do our jobs, public service jobs, without the support of our families, so tell them thank you on behalf of all of us. I also want to take a moment to recognize the work of former OMB Director and now Secretary of Health and Human Services, Sylvia Burwell. She was a fantastic partner and leader of the OMB during a very demanding year. President Obama made a great choice in nominating Sylvia for her new role and bringing her leadership and skill to the Department of Health and Human Services, and he made an equally strong choice in nominating Secretary Donovan to take over at OMB. Secretary Donovan, I'm really glad to have the opportunity to speak with you now about how your experience has prepared you for this role, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on some of the budget challenges we are going to need to address in the future. I know Secretary Donovan very well. We've worked together very closely over the last 5 years, and throughout that time, it has been very clear to me that he is focused first and foremost on strengthening our middle class by expanding opportunities for families and communities. Secretary Donovan was sworn in at the Department of Housing and Urban Development in January of 2009, and as the fallout from the financial crisis caused millions of families across our country to lose their homes and their financial security. Faced with almost unprecedented circumstances, Secretary Donovan led HUD through the complex process of stabilizing the housing market. Secretary Donovan took steps to keep responsible families in their homes and has reinforced the agency's role in providing access to affordable housing and building strong, sustainable neighborhoods. And he worked in a bipartisan manner, including with members of our committee, such as Senators Warner and Senators Crapo, to rethink how the nation continues to have a strong, durable, and affordable housing market going forward. So while more work remains, the nation has come a long way under his leadership. Secretary Donovan has been a highly effective and responsive partner to those of us in Congress when it comes to disaster relief, an area that transcends party lines. Over his tenure, he fought to make sure that every community hit hard by a natural disaster has the resources to get back on its feet and come back stronger than before. Nowhere was this more apparent than in the wake of Hurricane Sandy, when President Obama created the Hurricane Sandy Rebuilding Task Force and appointed Secretary Donovan as chair. Working together on these challenges, I know firsthand that Secretary Donovan confronted each one with a cool head, a deep commitment to service, and, as he said himself, a lot of spreadsheets. I'm confident he will bring each of those strengths and many more to the Office of Management and Budget. He is taking on this new role at a critical time because although we've made progress, which I'll discuss, there is a lot more to do. Our fiscal outlook has improved significantly in the near term. Since 2010, we have passed legislation now reducing our deficit by $3.3 trillion, most of the way towards the bipartisan goal of $4 trillion that was laid out by Simpson-Bowles. We stabilized the deficit as a share of the economy over the next few years, and the deficit for this fiscal year is expected to be less than a third of what the Congressional Budget Office projected it would be 5 years ago. But we still face serious debt challenges in the coming decades that we will need to address. The two-year budget agreement that Chairman Ryan and I reached was a step in the right direction. It moved us away from the dysfunction that has defined Congress over the past few years. It prevented another unnecessary government shutdown. It sent a strong signal that there is bipartisan support for replacing the automatic cuts from sequestration, which are scheduled to kick in again in 2016, and it laid out a blueprint for future negotiations over budget levels. But all that said, our deal was only a step. And as we look towards fiscal year 2016, it is critical we come together to build on it. I'm confident that Secretary Donovan will be an invaluable partner in this effort, because I know that just like his predecessor at OMB, when Secretary Donovan sees a problem, the question he asks is, how can we fix this in a way that does the most to help families and communities get ahead? This question is absolutely central to the challenges we face when it comes to the budget. It is true that the long-term debt is a threat to our economy, but a poorly educated workforce, inadequate infrastructure, and dampened innovation are just as much a threat, both to our economy and to our workers and families who are seeking more opportunity. So we need to make sure we're investing appropriately in those areas. And that means for fiscal year 2016, we are going to need to find a way again to roll back sequestration and replace it with responsible, balanced deficit reduction. I'm confident we can get this done because the Bipartisan Budget Act proved that neither side is willing to accept sequestration as the status quo. I believe we can reach an agreement that ensures we are making smart choices and investing in priorities that we know will pay off in a more economically competitive workforce and country. But as we all know, the work doesn't stop at solving the next fiscal year. Far from it. To ensure the programs and services we currently benefit from are there for future generations, we absolutely need to reach a larger agreement that addresses the true drivers of our debt and sets us on a fiscally responsible path, not just for a few years, but the long haul. We all know Democrats and Republicans have fundamental differences about how to get that done, but I strongly believe that if each side comes to the table ready to make a few tough choices to reach a compromise, if, like Chairman Ryan and I did during the budget negotiations last year, we take the time to build trust and focus on reaching a deal rather than winning the news cycle, we can deliver that kind of deal for the American people. Confronting the two challenges that I've just laid out, making critical investments in jobs and opportunity, and tackling our long-term budget challenges would do an enormous amount for families and workers across the country right now and for decades to come. And because these goals are so important, I'm very hopeful that Secretary Donovan's confirmation process will be a smooth and efficient one. We saw last year how critical it is to have a strong leader in place at the Office of Management and Budget. With Secretary Burwell already settling in now at HHS, there's every reason to move quickly and ensure the new OMB director can get to work. So, Secretary Donovan, I want to thank you again for being here, for joining us today and being willing to take on this new challenge. And I also, again, just personally want to thank you for all the work you have done already on part of our families and communities across the country.